What's going on, guys? It's Jimmy here. Tensions between the US and China and Taiwan really rising here. And you're not going to believe what experts are saying will happen or could happen with US military troops if China invades Taiwan. Let me show you a couple different things here. Take a look. Okay, first, the US yesterday sailed a US warship through the Taiwan Strait. This will further piss off China even more. Following China's drills in the region, when China encircled or surrounded Taiwan in a pretty frightening circumstance, especially if you're Taiwan, right? And the Chinese military encircled Taiwan in a massive military operation last week, further signaling that a China invasion into Taiwan could be happening here. Yeah, you can see here the U.S. sailed a U.S. warship through the Taiwan Strait for the first time since China concluded its massive military drills surrounding Taiwan on Sunday. The U.S. 7th Fleet sent guided missile destroyer USS Miles through the strait in what the U.S. has called a routine operation, and one which served to emphasize that the strait is beyond the territorial sea of any coastal state. But China will not be seeing it that way, I guarantee you. The maneuver comes just days after China concluded a series of military drills that saw its forces surround the self-governed island of Taiwan and simulate strikes against it. This is how serious things are getting here. China's drills came in response to the Taiwanese President Tsai's trip to the U.S. and subsequent meeting with House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. China has long claimed to hold sovereignty over the Taiwan Strait and the island of Taiwan itself, something that's not recognized by the U.S. or international law. Here is a picture of the USS Miles from the USS 7th Fleet sailing through the Taiwan Strait here. You guys can let me know your thoughts here on that. And an APAC security expert says, quote, there is no situation where Taiwan can defend itself against China the way Ukraine has fought against Russia. Remember that basically Taiwan is like 1% the size of China population wise and militarily wise as well. China has 2 million people in their military, more than the US military population. And China just changed their draft laws so that they can draft more men against their will. Quote, Taiwan's ability to defend itself against a Chinese invasion wouldn't hinge on whether the island can fight off Beijing if this happens, but whether it can hold out until US forces arrive, said a political scientist who studies Chinese military and Asian Pacific security, saying, quote, there's no situation under which Taiwan can defend itself without direct military intervention from the United States. That means U.S. troops on the ground there in Taiwan helping defend against the Chinese. So just think about that for a second. And then remember here, President Biden said that we would defend Taiwan if China attacked. In fact, you'll see this here in a second. So just think about this for a second. This is coming from Oriana Schuyler Maestro, a fellow at Stanford University's Freeman Spogli Institute for International Studies, told the Washington Post, saying, quote, it's a scenario often compared to Russia's war in Ukraine, where Kyiv successfully rebuffed the Kremlin's advances for a year. Taiwan's game plan will have to be different, according to Maestro, who's also a strategic planner for the Air Force Reserve's Indo-Pacific Command. Yeah. Taiwan, quote, has to be able to hold out long enough for the United States to get enough forces in theater, aka for the United States to get enough people there to defend against an invasion from China. So just think this through for a second. And US forces would be significantly delayed if the war does break out over the Taiwan Strait, probably because the Taiwan Strait would be occupied by China before the US would get there and would not be easily traversed. Saying, quote, we cannot get there quickly. It's basically submarines and US aircraft that are going to be operating from the southwest islands of Japan and eventually from bases in the northern Philippines, said the political scientist. The White House has long cleaved to a strategic ambiguity playbook when it comes to China and Taiwan, refusing to say if the U.S. would defend the self governing island should Beijing mount an offensive. President Joe Biden, however, has twice appeared to break from that strategy, explicitly saying in 2021 and 2022 that Washington would send American troops to Taiwan. Though the White House has walked back his comments each time and declared that there's been no change to the Taiwan policy. So just think about this. China thinking about invading Taiwan. Some people think that this is going to happen sooner rather than later. China just changed their draft policy so that they can draft more men in a quicker amount of time. And remember, Russia just did the same thing. Why are they doing this? You can let me know your thoughts here. Well, Russia did this and they're in a war. And is China doing this to prepare for war also? And if this does happen, President Biden has actually said that the U.S. would have U.S. boots on the ground there in Taiwan, that the U.S. military would defend Taiwan, even though they're not a part of NATO. Biden said that we would do this twice publicly. You guys let me know your thoughts here on this. Does this also mean that all of NATO gets involved? 30 other countries? And Finland now, too. Sweden potentially going to be part of this here as well. Is this the start of World War III if China does this? Which China is looking increasingly ever closer to doing this here, literally almost by the day. And what happens in Ukraine really kind of sets the tone and sets the message for what happens there. The more and more, if Russia gets, the kind of path to success, if they see the light of day to success there in Ukraine, that sends the message to China to get the green light. If Russia sees more failure there in Ukraine, that sends the message to China that it hasn't been working out for Russia. Maybe we shouldn't do this. Maybe the world won't allow this. The other thing to consider here, too, is that if this war happens, there would almost for sure be a trade embargo with the US and China, which means no more products from China. And on the surface, you might be thinking, oh, great, we don't need products from China. But what you're not probably thinking about is that all the shelves that would be bare from our stores and how rapidly that would increase the prices for your grocery bills. Not the food items, but we get a lot of products from China. And the US is not even prepared to make all this stuff that we get from China, all the other things, household items that we get from China and plastic parts, car parts, computer parts, cell phone parts. I mean, all these things, right? We would have a massive, massive supply chain constraint and shortage in the world and in the United States here. Look at all the countries, the US and Europe, that's not buying oil from Russia. Imagine if the US and the rest of the world said, we're not going to buy anything from China now as well. Massive, massive problems. I mean, remember the toilet paper shortage and the run on the stores for toilet paper? Imagine the run on the stores for everything else because now there's a shortage on everything except for like maybe like, food because a lot of food's made here in the US because it's perishable. Imagine if there's a shortage on like everything. Yeah. So this is could create massive, massive, massive amounts of problems that you're not even thinking about. And if you think inflation is bad now, imagine if all of a sudden we can't buy anything from China, the prices would just skyrocket because there'd be a shortage on like all these sorts of things here. And that's going to send prices skyrocketing because American companies are just not made to cover the volume of what we would need. And where are we going to get all this stuff made? I mean, we'd like to have it made in the US for the same price, but right now it's just not practical. So let me know your thoughts here in the comments. But this is all things to consider. I'll keep you up to date here on all this unfolds here on our YouTube channel. So make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel down below. Click the subscribe button, then the bell icon so you don't miss out on new videos. It's completely free to do so. New videos come out here every day at 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And thanks for liking and sharing these videos. Here's some videos you should watch next. Here's a massive bill going to pass here soon that you need to know about. It's going to have actually a lot of problems with it, though. And here's what China and Russia just did. You could watch this video next. So click on one of those. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.